Welcome to Weekend One, the fast-paced current affairs show, giving you the quick roundup of some of the top stories and interviews making headlines on eNCA over the past week. I'm Aviwem Mtila, and this is your week's top stories. A German tourist is shot and killed while visiting the Kruger National Park in Mpumalanga. David Makura resigns as Gauteng Premier and passes on the baton to Panyaza Lesufi. And educators in the Eastern Cape in hot water after pictures go viral of pupil neglect. Now, the news week kicked off with a bang. The Hawks arrested several suspected illegal mining kingpins in Gauteng's West Rand. 7 people were arrested in joint operations on Tuesday in Carltonville and Kutong. They face charges of fraud, money laundering, and being illegally in possession of precious metal and gold. Our reporter, Puleli Chwiti-Jones, filed this report.
Law enforcement agencies have come down hard on illegal mining following July's barbaric gang rape at a disused mine dump in Krugersdorp. The Hawks say they can't rule out the possibility of linking the men to illegal operations and zamazamas in Krugersdorp.
We cannot do that at this stage. Some of the investigations in Krugersdorp are being investigated by the Hawks Serious Organized Crime.
Police in the West Rand say they're proud of today's mega bust. 14 high-performance cars worth millions and a truck was seized during a raid.
To be in possession of precious metals, to kidnap people for precious metals or fighting for territory, or to harm or maim others fighting for territories, or committing crimes due to precious metals issues. It's a very serious offense, and we leave no stone unturned.
Pule Chwiti-Jones in West Rand.
To this headache now, rolling blackouts and water restrictions in the middle of a heat wave. That seems to be the new normal for Gauteng residents. Several Rand water pump stations supplying Gauteng metros have implemented stage 2 water cuts as reserves run low. Rolling blackouts were escalated to stage 4 as more generation units broke down. eNCA's Heidi Giokos has the inside track.
Scorching temperatures are expected to continue across Gauteng for the rest of this week. Spring rains haven't begun and residents are being urged to be careful as the mercury soars.
We're encouraging our residents out there to avoid direct sunlight, especially between 11 and 3. In the afternoon it's extremely hot. They must take care. Those who are working, on a direct sunlight, they need to take regular breaks, drink lots of water to stay hydrated.
To make matters worse, Rand Water has already started implementing stage 2 water restrictions in the city of Tshwane. Rand Water says reservoirs are running low and Eskom's rolling blackouts have played a part in it.
We are monitoring what is happening, obviously our reservoir levels. We are also on a campaign, water conservation campaign, where we are really raising awareness to say, so use water sparingly so that each and every person can have water. So it's a bit difficult for me to say it's going to be worse or it's going to get better, but we're saying if we all pull together and work together, we will conserve water and we'll all have water.
Basically what you're telling me is that if people don't start using water sparingly and we don't have rains, we could possibly be seeing water cuts.
Absolutely, yes, we might be moving to that stage.
Johannesburg residents are not impressed.
Well, okay, I felt it. Last night we had load shedding from 2, came back after 1 in the morning. No water this morning. So thanks God we kind of prepared. The heat, unbearable. We're sitting in offices. Generators are giving in. So yeah, it's a problem.
Yo, it's crazy. Like, I can't even sleep at night because all the mosquitoes and everything, you know what I mean?
I've actually just come back from the Eastern Cape and I can see the difference. There's quite a lot of heat in the area and temperatures, but yeah, it's summer, so let's summarize.
Rand Water says restrictions could get worse. According to its website, though, the Vaal Dam is at 95% capacity and the Vaal Integrated River System's overall capacity stands at 66%. The dams seem to be full, but Rand Water is blaming critically low reservoir levels for the water cuts. The Helen Joseph and Rahima Musa Hospital in Johannesburg are battling to cope as taps remain dry. Heidi Giokos in Johannesburg.
To the Eastern Cape, where educators at a school have come under heavy fire this week. This follows pictures that went viral on social media that shows teachers disregarding pupils to go out partying during a field trip. eNCA's Ronald Masinda compiled this report.
Eastern Cape Education MEC Fundile Gadi says he's disturbed by images that did the rounds on social media recently of children sleeping on the floor. That's after educators from a school in Tabangulu left them and went out partying during an excursion.
We have since sent the investigation team, and they have brought the preliminary report to myself, because I wanted us to deal with that matter as a matter of urgency, because it is one of those issues that makes the public to lose confidence and trust into the public schooling system that we have. We are closing that investigation.
This is just one of many incidents that the SA Human Rights Commission in the province is looking into. The SA Human Rights Commission's provincial head, Ellen Carter, says they are working closely with education authorities to deal with these problems.
The Department of Education in the Eastern Cape is unfortunately our biggest respondent, which means that we receive the most cases against this one single department in the province. About 25% of all our complaints are education related. So we have several open investigations that we are looking into.
The outcome of the investigation is expected on Thursday. Ronald Masinda, East London.
To this tragic story where 3 persons of interest have been arrested after a safari holiday turned fatal for a 67-year-old German tourist. The man was shot dead when his vehicle was attacked en route to the Kruger National Park in Mpumalanga. Police Minister Bheki Cele confirmed that 11 more robberies against tourists have been reported in the area. I filed this report a bit earlier on in the week. Shattered glass caused by the bullet that took the life of a German tourist late afternoon on Monday. He was one of 4 Germans that were touring South Africa, headed to check in at the Mzuli Safari Lodge, where they spend the next 3 days, part of their tour of South Africa.
It's absolutely terrible. It's the worst thing I ever experienced in my career in tourism, and I hope no lodge, no family ever have to go through this again. There's a lot of fear in the international community, and some of it is not necessarily due, but you can understand people are scared if they come towards our country and they hear about crime incidents like that.
We have 3 people of interest on this one. They are not arrested, are people of interest, though they're in the hands of the police. We are working to find out how far have we gone with them. So we believe that we will be able to crack the case very, very soon.
The police minister says while there have been no previous fatalities, 11 similar cases have been reported in this area this year alone, with only 2 arrests.
The other one, it was a bus carrying passengers or tourists. So 2 guys came out. They shot in that bus, but 1 tourist was injured. Unfortunately, I'm not sure whether he died or what happened, but he was shot, and they ran away because he refused to stop. So those thieves, they went to the bush.
The German tourist took his last breaths at the wall of this school, driving into it as he was frantically running away from his would-be killers. Aviwe Mtila, Numbi Hazelview, Mpumalanga. Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, our anchors follow up on the news agenda with interviews with key newsmakers and analysis. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Week in One. I am Aviwe Mtila. Now, in this part of the show, we look at some of the big interviews that our anchors did this week as they unpack the news of the day. German ambassador to SA, Andreas Peschka, has passed on his gratitude for the support the family received from South African authorities. He spoke to eNCA anchor Dan Moyane following the tragic shooting of a German national on Numbi Road near White River on Monday afternoon.
Welcome to today. Thank you very much for your time here this afternoon. Not such a good topic. It's a tragic story of the shooting and killing of one of your citizens on our shores. When did you get the news, and what was your initial thought when you heard about this death?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon, and thank you for talking to us on this tragic incident. Of course, we are very saddened and also shocked by what seems to have happened. In this case, we got the first information sometime last night and have been working on the case ever since. We have been in touch with the South African national and regional authorities to see what can be done. As there are other German nationals involved in the case, we also try to offer consular assistance so that all the questions and all the things that need to be done and need to be clarified right now can be sorted out in a proper way. But of course, what has happened is very tragic, and we are deeply saddened by what has happened.
The fallout will have an impact, I guess, on tourism.
You know, it comes at a very unfortunate time, I would say, as everybody has been working very hard to revive tourism after 2 hard years of the pandemic. I think the tourism sector in South Africa is a very strong sector, and Germany is in fact the 3rd largest market for the South African tourism sector. So, there's a big interest in Germany to use the coming season, the coming summer season here in South Africa to come and visit. There have been a lot of bookings. In fact, bookings have been picking up for the first time really after the pandemic. And so it comes at a very unfortunate time, and the interest in Germany is quite big. That's why I would say it's quite really important that by the side of these security institutions in South Africa, by the police, by the government, there's a strict follow-up to what has happened, so that to make sure that tourists who come can feel safe when and if they come.
After 8 years in the top spot of South Africa's economic hub, David Makhura has stepped down as the Gauteng Premier. He's also resigned as a member of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. eNCA anchor Sally Burdett spoke to the ANC's provincial spokesperson, Lesego Makubela.
So what's going to happen on Thursday?
Well, on Thursday there will be the election of a new premier. So all MPLs will come to the legislature and elect the new premier. The African National Congress has expressed itself on its chairperson, that the chairperson will then take over the baton in what has been a very seamless, smooth transition. Comrade David Makhura is an outstanding congressman, an exemplary statesman who has led our province for 8 years. He's the longest serving premier of this province. He announced in February in our conference that he will then be part of a transition and hand over the baton to the newly elected leadership.
Yeah, this is good to know, because of course this is the economic hub of the country. We need to keep things stable, particularly as we're seeing quite a lot of turbulence at local government, metro level in the province. When will Panyaza Lesufi start as premier? Will it be Thursday, as soon as he's elected?
Yeah, he will start as a premier on Thursday as soon as he's elected. At least he will find that he's not going to be working on a foundation of collapse. He'll be building on what has already been laid. Sure. Great work has been done. Comrade David Makhura and those who came before him would have laid a solid foundation from him to continue.
So, of course, the obvious question, he's going to vacate the education MEC position. Does that mean that a provincial shake-up is on the cards, inevitably? Certainly that one position, but can we expect more?
In Gauteng, we don't have shake-ups. We do
Changes.
reshuffle. We do things differently. Of course, he will not be able to occupy two positions at the same time. Once he becomes premier, he oversees the entire executive.
To this now, from staying in the dark to being left high and dry. Gauteng's Rand Water has now announced stage 2 water cuts. These are mainly because reservoirs are under pressure amid a heat wave in the province. eNCA anchor Gareth Edwards spoke to Mike Miller from the Wits School of Governance for more analysis of the current status quo.
In your mind, just how bad is this? And B, could this have been avoided? Good morning, Prof.
Firstly, let's just remember, every October, before it starts raining, when it gets hot, people use a lot of water, and we find different areas of our cities begin to be short, and if you're on the top of a hill, they run out. So although there's plenty of water in the dams, this isn't like ESCOM where the power stations aren't working. In the case of water, the dams are full, there's plenty of water in them. What we do have is a problem with the distribution. It's a bit like those substations which are overloaded because people use too much electricity and they blow up. If you've got lots of water towers and water reservoirs around your city, but lots of people are using too much water, they will run dry and then there will be water cuts. So unlike ESCOM, the dams are doing well, the power stations of the water sector, but the distribution, the circulation of water around the cities is running into trouble. And some of those substations or the local water reservoirs are drying up, if not blowing up. So it's a little bit different to the electricity situation, and thankfully not quite as bad because it's a short-term problem, but we need to deal with it effectively. And I don't think there's been adequate communication to explain what's happening.
How do we avoid this in future?
The longer-term problem is that while we have enough water in the dams at the moment, we keep growing the demand of how many people there are, how much water is required. And so that the existing dams aren't going to be able to provide enough water for everybody in the years to come. For that reason, Rand Water is only allowed to take a fixed amount of water out of the dams. And when they reach that, they should actually begin to restrict the use by the cities, and the cities should restrict the use by the residents. Now, that hasn't been very well communicated. So, Johannesburg has been supposed to be on stage 1 water restrictions, but if you just walk around the city, you'll find that there's absolutely no evidence that people are obeying those restrictions. And now we're finding that with less water coming in, Rand Water is having to insist that they reduce even further. The problem has been one of not communicating what the issues are and not communicating what the implications are for all the water users in the cities here in Gauteng.
Stay tuned to Weekend 1. Coming up, Panyaza Lesufi is elected as the new Premier of Gauteng. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back to Weekend 1. I am Aviwem Tila. Police have yet to make a breakthrough in the kidnapping of a Ukrainian woman who was ambushed and snatched from a car in Blackheath last week. The National Anti-Kidnapping Task Team is in Cape Town to deal with the matter. eNCA senior reporter Aisha Ismail has more on this developing story.
This video went viral on social media last week. It shows Anna Penev trying to fight off her kidnappers. The incident took place in broad daylight, not far from where she and her husband run a successful business. Police have investigated 33 cases of kidnapping in the Western Cape since March this year. A close friend of the Penevs who did not want to be identified says they are incredibly worried about her safety.
This is something which highly dangerous to happen to anyone. No one can be prepared for this. And putting on aside the shock which is obviously coming with something like this, physical injuries are going together with this, you see. But one more time, at the moment, we can only guess what is the situation.
And if you were to guess, why do you think she was the one targeted?
I would say probably because of the business which are they doing, because of the image which they having in the society as successful people. But this would be only a guess.
He says he knows nothing about a ransom demand and was emotional when talking about Penev's 2 young children.
We're trying everything what is in our power to make them as comfortable as possible. Obviously, they don't know the details, but they are feeling that their mother is not there, is not next to them, to be 1 year old and to sleep with your mother every night, and all of a sudden your mother is not there. Even only the smell of a mother not there, it's shocking for small children, for a small child.
He says Penev's husband is distraught.
They were a beautiful family and they love each other, and he's in shock and he prays every day that his wife come back home.
His only plea is for her kidnappers to release her unharmed. Aisha Ismail, Cape Town.
Joburg Mayor Dada Morero says they're working around the clock to restore water in the city. Morero, who recently replaced Dr. Mpho Phalatse as the city's mayor, takes over at a time when large parts of Joburg are without water. Puleli Chuti Jones has more on the story.
Rand Water says it's doing everything in its power to restore water storage to full capacity. However, it's been affected by challenges including power cuts and ailing infrastructure.
Rand Water has had numerous challenges, operational challenges, which affected their Suikerbos treatment plant. So when they had power trips because of Eskom power failures on their side, it obviously affects their ability to distribute water to our Commander Road system in this case.
Joburg Mayor Dada Morero admits that more has to be done to resolve the issue. Morero has also committed to looking into the water infrastructure.
Certainly we have to catch up in terms of increasing capacity and increasing the infrastructure, whether it's water, whether it's electricity, or any other infrastructure. And hence we are taking a view at looking at the 100 billion infrastructure investment program that we want to implement.
Hospitals in Johannesburg such as Helen Joseph and Rahima Musa are buckling under pressure. They've had to resort to alternative plans to ensure their water storage capacity doesn't drop to meet demand.
The water pressures are still too low to supply the entire hospital. So we have problems, particularly in our outpatient area, as well as in 1 or 2 administration areas. However, the saving grace for us has been that we have had a borehole. Borehole has allowed us to continue with services, and particularly our inpatient services, so the labour ward and theatres or so, have not been affected at all.
It was a bit uncomfortable, and with the hygiene issues, the cleaning would be a little bit delayed because we'd have to go fetch water from the tank to come and clean the areas. Places like our theatres would also be affected because of the steam with us sterilizing our equipment and so forth. So we have been affected a little bit with the decrease in that capacity. But I think over the few days ago, things have been improving.
For now, all residents have to wait until the issue of blackouts and water restrictions are resolved. Pule Lichwiti Jones in Johannesburg.
Let's stay with politics. ANC Gauteng chairperson Panyaza Lesufi has been elected as the new premier. eNCA's Moloko Moloto was there.
There's a new sheriff in town.
So, help me God.
Premier Panyaza Lesufi promises to continue implementing programs introduced by his predecessor David Makhura. He also says he wants to grow Gauteng's economy.
But 2, which I really feel is going to be non-negotiable and is going to create enemies. Hence, we are saying it's holy cows. It's the fight against crime. The fight against crime, the fight against lawlessness, and the fight against corruption.
The ANC Youth League says it's happy for Lesufi.
We want him to be very aggressive on issues of agriculture and land to give to young people, so that young people become the champions of putting bread on the table in their own families. He must be very aggressive and set the bar higher. Premier Makhura has left us with a youth advisory panel. He must set the bar higher and include young people in his executive.
But not everyone is chuffed by Lesufi's ascension to power.
We're not expecting anything new. We're expecting smoke screens all over. We're expecting cover-ups all over. But more than that, we're expecting that those reports that are substantially implicating people are not going to see the light of day. Why? Because some of the people that the premier, the newly elected premier, answers to are implicated in those reports. Some of them are sitting in his own PEC. Some of them are sitting at a national level. And they're not going to come out, because once they do come out, you know, it means that people are going to go to jail. And this is what has also sunk David Makura as we speak.
Lesufi will announce his new executive council on Friday. It remains to be seen how he will strike a balance, especially with those who didn't support him for ANC provincial chairperson and those within other tripartite alliance partners. Muluku Mulot, Johannesburg.
And that's a wrap from this weekend's edition of Weekend One. From myself, Aviwem Mtila, and the brilliant Weekend One team, have a lekker weekend.